Part 1. First Marriage Then Love, Mr. Mayor Please Be Kind. Author, Zhao Nuan. Chapter 1. In the dilapidated farmhouse, a 16-year-old girl in the old-fashioned blue clothes, a large knife in a slender hand, and laboriously cut hard hemp cake, soybean fried oil. The latter scum was pressed by about 10 centimeters of round cakes. When the knife was scratched from the hemp cake, it was trembling and trembling, making people look shocked. Several reed chickens twisted their buttocks and stretched their heads around the girl. When there was a sip, they quickly swallowed away, and then returned. In front of the big pot of the hall, a woman around 30 years old and thin, glanced at the girl's little figure with a gloomy face, and slammed the cooking broom on the pot. Pot water. Dang dang, excessive force. The original loose screw came with a free fall. The head and the scoop were divided into home, and the water splashed with the woman with one hand. The woman frowned and threw the head of the hedge with a long fence, threw the water stains on the front and the cuffs, and took the gourd scoop. Next to the pot. In a dirty leather barrel. Turning his head and glanced at the man who coaxed the child in the east house and coaxed the child, turned his eyes, the woman lifted half a bucket of dirty water, wow! Pouted to the center of the yard. The reed chicken, which was surrounded by the girl, ran happily, and the sharp mouth pounded back and forth on the ground. Roll. You can eat dirty goods that can't be done. Go and go. The woman scolded, bent over and grabbed a sandy soil to the chicken group. Regarding the sand that the woman raised, the actual reed chickens who drank had ignored the policy, which made the woman's anger more vigorous, reaching out and grabbing the big stone in the corner, throwing it over. Boom. Giggle, giggle. Pumming the itch. The yard was in a mess, and the girl who cut the cake seemed to be full of ears about all of this, and continued to fight against the hemp cake on the hand. The man rushed out of the east house with the child. What? Chicken drinking some water can also attract you a lot. I see that you are not in love with the light of the province all day. What happened to be comfortable? The woman smashed the water scoop to the man. The day of the province? Marrying a Han dressed, but I marry you not only to eat it, but not even a nest. Men. The man twisted quickly, the water scoop slammed on the back, a few drops of water droplets splashed on the child's small face, and the little guy's mouth was stunned, and he howl was shocking. The man distressed the child, frowned at the woman, his face was anger. The woman stretched her head to the man with no gratitude. What is the big eye? What do you have to hit me? You are a man, you kill me, fight. What's wrong? What's wrong with this? A woman around the age of 50-year-old, a woman wearing a blue top and black pants came in time from outside the hospital. Passing a child, look at the shame. Mother, you want to give me the master, oh. The woman's crying, with an absolute advantage over the voice of the little baby with Sunzongwei. Chu East, you are a man, let Miking a little bit. Mother, why didn't I let her? The girl put down the blunt knife in her hand, rubbing the sore wrist and the tight fingertips, and sighed helplessly. More than half a year, and she was staged almost every day. She did not adapt to it. Instead, it is getting more and more annoying. What kind of sin did she do in the early summer of her Lin? God wants to punish her like this. Yes, she is Lin Chuxia, but she is not Lin Chuxia. In the early summer, why is it so wet on the back? Did you splash it? The soft inquiries reduced the boredom in Lin Chuxia's heart a lot. She raised her head. Looking at the middle-aged woman standing in front of her, Mother, it's okay, just splash a little bit. By the way, how did the mother come back so early today? Mother and your father divided into a group, and the rest of your dad can finish it? Chu Xianiang Zhao Yulan reached out and touched the girl's head. Sigh, can't say it. The daughter had a bad bone, and after a serious illness, she became weaker. However, the family couldn't get a good thing to make up for her daughter. in the early days of Xia Niang's heart, it hurt. Mother, I have more activities. Just Qi Xia quickly stood up, grabbed Zhao Yulan's arm and shook, Mother, don't worry about me. Zhao Yulan's eyes were slightly red. Since the serious illness, her daughter was always cold or hot to her. For this, she didn't cry at night. Finally, she finally had hope. Near the evening, in the early summer, Lin Baohe, his father, carried his head with the iron puppet. He looked at his daughter a few times and looked at his wife. The burning has been retreated, it's almost the same. Zhao Yulan hilled, Lin Baohe's worried look stood down. Parents' concern is so true. In the early summer, a warmth came in the heart. Daddy, Mother, I will go to work tomorrow. No. Lin Baohe and Zhao Yulan almost rejected. In the early summer, how can your bones do those heavy work? Let's talk about it for a while, don't go in your heart. Speaking of the later, Chu Xianiang lamented that in the countryside, no sun represented the roots, and it was extremely despised. The house they live in now is one house, one Dongguo, one east and one west. The east and the east house belong to the uncle's home in the early summer, the west is returned to the early summer house, and the two houses are shared by the house. The reason for the distribution in this way is because the early summer father did not have a son, and Grandpa Qi Xia barely split a western house for the early Xia family. In the early summer, Xiao Xiao gave birth to twin sons. Therefore, Grandpa early summer, Grandma, gave another house to Uncle Chu Xia, and the old couple followed there. Uncle Xiao. Chu Xiata always cried like this, and naturally, he thought that the early summer family had a house, and he wanted to push out the Chu Xia family. I pick up the rice. Chu Xia Niang wiped the tears in the corner of her eyes to the house. In the early summer, she was still stunned and didn't follow it. Mother, your stomach hurt again. When Chu Xianiang came in with the meal, she was stunned. Chu Xia thought that her old illness was committed again, and hurriedly helped her. No. Chu Xia mother took a breath, pulled out an egg from the belly and handed it to the early summer. The low voice was full of joy. The mother cooked it for you. When I came here in the early summer, when I packed my meals, the uncle's family always happened to be someone came out. The clothes, I saw a red piece on her stomach. In the early summer, the tear-long early summer quietly sucked her nose, put down Zhao Yulan's clothes, rolled the eggs along the top, carefully peeled the skin, and then picked the eggs into 3 pieces. Dad, Mother, you also eat it too. Mother is suspected. Zhao Yulan stuffed the eggs back to the early summer. In the early summer, obedient, if you let you see it, we will not be able to pass in the future. This egg is given by you. You feel distressed. Zhao Yulan couldn't speak. Lin Baohe pushed the eggs back to the early summer, got up to the house, and after a while, he came in with a cover with 3 bowls of corn noodles. Eat. Dad, Mother, I will let you live a good life after meals. In the early summer, such a sentence suddenly appeared. Eggs, she ate, porridge, she drank, she swallowed with the hard swallow cakes that was stuck with a high beam and corn noodles, and she swallowed. For a long time, she has always been negative. For this era, she has no sense of belonging. For this father, this mother, she can't be real close. Make your body worse and don't want to force yourself. However, the people's hearts are long mead. After more than half a year of getting along, her heart has gradually been covered by them. She knows that the father and mother of this era love her in the same age. Occupied the body of her daughter, she couldn't mix such a half-dead day. Zhao Yulan narrowed his eyes. Xia, as long as you can marry a good family, live comfortably, father and mother think it is a good life. Lin Baohe's words could not be short, but when he saw his soft face expression, he knew that he was also happy. After Zhao Yulan gave birth to the early summer, Grandma in the early summer learned that she was the granddaughter, and she didn't even look at it, not to mention the confinement. As a result, Zhao Yulan, who had died in advance in the confinement, dropped his illness and could no longer have childbirth. In this regard, Lin Baohe and Zhao Yulan were of course regrettable, but later, the couple accepted the fact calmly and spoiled their daughters from the heart. However, her daughter and them have not been very close. When I was in winter last year, the daughter and the good younger sisters had a little contradiction, and they rushed to sneak away from home with heavy rain. Fortunately, they were brought back by the villagers. After the rain, the daughter's attitude towards the two was getting colder, and sometimes even too lazy to talk to them. Fortunately, the daughter's attitude is slowly changing during this time, but the closeness like today is really close to it. For the first time, the early summer before the serious illness had not been intimate with them, which made them a little flattered. This night, the family was sleeping very comfortably. In the early summer, Father Chu Xianiang finally opened the knot because her daughter finally opened her heart. It was indeed because the early summer was finally opened. However, the so-called knot of the two sides was completely different. First marriage then love. Mr. Mayor, please be kind. Author, Zhao Nuan. Chapter 2. Bang. Chiang. 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 As soon as the sky was light, she was awakened by a loud noise in early summer. She rubbed her tangled hair irritably and covered her head under the quilt. In the middle of the night last night, I vaguely heard Xuan'er crying. Lu Miking was like this. She didn't sleep well, and she was determined not to let others sleep well. This other person, of course, is her Lin Chuxia in this room. Everyone next to her wakes up earlier than Lu Miking. Squeak, the door opened. Zhao Yulan walked in with a smile, pulled out her daughter's head that was covered in the quilt, tucked the quilt tightly, and whispered, "Mother burned a sweet potato under the pot for you. At half noon, you take it out and eat it yourself." Chu Xia responded, looked up at the old wall clock on the wall. It was only 6 o'clock, but the noise was so loud that she couldn't stop it even with 10 layers of quilts, so she said, "Mother, close the door, I'm up. Lie down for a while, your father went to pick up feces and hasn't come back yet." Zhao Yulan pressed her daughter, "How about my mother find you a piece of cotton to plug your ears?" "No, I'm not sleepy anymore." He said that he was not sleepy anymore, but couldn't help yawning. Lin Chuxia smiled embarrassedly, "Mother, I'm really not sleepy anymore." This child. Zhao Yulan pinched her daughter's face in a funny way, but she couldn't help but redden her eyes. First, she was happy for her daughter's sudden understanding, and second, she felt distressed for her pale face. If you give nourishment to your daughter, her hair will turn black and her face will become rosy, but, if that's the case, it may not be a blessing. Seeing Zhao Yulan staring straight at herself, happy for a while, sad for a while, Chu Xia hurriedly sat up. "Mother, what's wrong?" "Xia, those women in the village say that you are not good looking, that is pantothenic water in your heart, don't take it seriously. Xia will appoint a good husband in the future," Zhao Yulan said without end. Chu Xia's lips curled into a smile. "Mother, I know. In this era, due to the poverty of the economy, everyone is looking for a daughter-in-law to prefer a girl with a strong body, thick eyebrows and big eyes, who can work in a hurry, and she is beautiful, but it doesn't quite meet the needs of this era." In fact, Lin Chuxia has always been quite puzzled. Zhao Yulan is at best pretty, and Lin Baohe is not very good looking, but the daughter she gave birth to, why is she so outstanding? Thin black crescent eyebrows, watery big phoenix eyes, thin double eyelids, straight little nose, rosy and sexy lips. When she first looked in the mirror, she was really impressed by the beauty of the deity. Fascinated, but, if she could choose, she would rather be herself in that time and space. Zhao Yulan carefully looked at her daughter's face. "Xia, mother said this is not to coax you, Xia is really good looking." "Mother, I believe it." Chu Xia's tone became a little more serious, but it was a little funny in his heart. The deity of this body, because of this appearance, complained a lot about his parents, and the parents didn't know how much he cared for his daughter behind his back. I'm afraid I can't find a suitable husband. As everyone knows, how many girls are envious of having such a skin. Of course, this is her Linchuxia's idea. Could it be that the original owner of this body responded to the rhetoric of beautiful beauty since ancient times? Otherwise, how could she be so distracted at such a young age that she took up her body? Or, the owner of this body took her body? Maybe one day I woke up in the morning and switched back. Forget about it? Forget about it? Linchuxia shook her head vigorously, forcing herself to pull back her thoughts. For more than half a year, she has always had such fantasies. Unfortunately, she is still in the late 1970s, not the materially developed 2010s. Forget it, she should accept the reality. Xia, what's the matter? Zhao Yulan held her daughter's arms worriedly. Is there any discomfort again? Tell my mother, and my mother will go to Drlu to get some medicine. Linchuxia quickly put on a smiley face. Mother, I'm not that squeamish, just not sober. Shaking his head, he was more awake. Zhao Yulan breathed a sigh of relief, but couldn't help but let out a long sigh. Father and mother are incompetent, just like a child like you, they didn't give you a good body. Mother, I'm hungry. Linchuxia hurriedly interrupted Zhao Yulan, otherwise, she would definitely have to repent on this issue for a long time. Anyway, for more than half a year, she has not listened to this kind of repentance. Then you put on your clothes, mother will go get some food. The daughter, who had never liked to eat, even took the initiative to say that she was hungry, so Zhao Yulan went to the main room in a hurry. Perhaps because of such a daughter, Zhao Yulan and Lin Baohe's doting on their children is nothing like the parents of this era. Therefore, the deity Linchuxia raised by them is nothing like the girls of this era. Anyway, in this era, there are shortcomings everywhere. However, these disadvantages have helped Linchuxia now. Otherwise, she was suddenly thrown away in this era. It is estimated that she would have gone to the deity to report her life experience. The breakfast consisted of cornmeal lawadu, battered cornmeal, a plate of deadly pickled radish strips and a few stalks of dried shallots. As soon as the rice was served, Lin Baohe came back and saw the early summer when he was sitting at the table and washed his face. Immediately softened. For more than half a year, she hadn't had breakfast with them in early summer. She was still sleeping every time she had breakfast. It seemed that the child was really sensible. After the mood changed, the thick cornmeal cakes that were difficult to swallow turned out to be a lot easier to swallow. Linchuxia ate 2 cakes in one go, drank a bowl of corn batter, put down the bowl, and caught the happy gaze of her parents. She reacted violently. Come here, she ate too much for breakfast. Linchuxia just wanted to beat herself to death. What a pig, why did she forget what age it was? Thinking that eating all the meals that parents handed to you is the best repayment to your parents repaying your sister? What do you repay when your parents have nothing to eat? The key point is that Lin Baohe and Zhao Yulan are both going to work in the production team to earn work points. How can they have the strength to work without enough food? Although she may not be full at ordinary times, she ate it anyway. Today is a good day. She ate 2/3 of the ration for breakfast by herself. She suddenly remembered that her mother was cooking the sweet potatoes under the pot. Linchuxia quickly got off the kong and put on her shoes. Zhao Yulan grabbed her and said, Xia, what are you doing? Mother. Linchuxia's face was as red as a ripe plum in August. I'll take out the sweet potatoes, and mother and father will stick to each other. Zhao Yulan smiled and pressed Chu Xia down on the edge of the bed. Sweet potato is reserved for you to eat for a long time. Xia, you can only be strong when you eat, father and mother can rest assured. Then she looked at Lin Baohe, her father, didn't you get the dried sweet potatoes at home? Lin Baohe was stunned for a moment, then nodded quickly, yeah. Xia, your father and I went to work, and by the way, I brought some dried sweet potatoes to eat, and waited for my mother to come back to cook for you at noon. Stop cutting the sesame cakes, wait for my mother to come back and cut. Knowing that Zhao Yulan was lying to herself, Lin Chuxia still smiled and nodded. Mother, I'll wait for you and Dad to come back. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. First marriage then love, Mr. Mayor please be kind. Author, Zhao Nuan. Chapter 3. After Zhao Yulan and Lin Baohe went to work, in the bored early summer, they stood in the room and looked up at the newspapers on the ceiling that she had not finished sweeping. In the 1970s, the interior walls of rural huts were mostly pasted with newspapers. People with better conditions would go to Zhejiang to buy beautiful paper flowers to paste the walls. Of course, they could not afford it under the conditions of early summer homes. The wall-pasted newspapers were ordered by Zhao Yulan from her parents' house. Lin Chuxia had already swept the places where she could see them n times. As for the ones on the roof, they were left behind because of their height. In this era of poor material life, spiritual life is equally poor, not to mention TV, even radio is rare. As for books and newspapers, they are even more rare. What a torment is this for Lin Chuxia, who is used to the internet and the mother-in-law. Squeak, the door was pushed open, and Lu Miking stuck her head in with a smile on her face. Chuxia. Lin Chuxia couldn't help shivering when she heard the call that was deliberately clenched in her throat. Can the weasel pay New Year's greetings to the rooster? Help my sister-in-law watch Xuan Er, okay, as expected. Before Chu Xia said anything, Lu Miking said what she meant, but it was a questioning sentence, but it felt affirmative. No, Lin Chuxia categorically refused. Father and mother went to work to earn work points before they had enough to eat, but it wasn't for her to take care of Lu Miking's children at home. Sister-in-law has a book here. You put Xuan Er to sleep and read it slowly. Lu Miking handed over a red-skinned book in her hand, but she snorted coldly in her heart. Rural girl, what kind of cultural person is you pretending to be? The words jumped up, and I don't know if I really knew or pretended to know. Don't see. Glancing at the words on the skin, Lin Chuxia immediately refused. It is said that there is a shortage of books in this era, but there is no shortage of this kind of books. Who doesn't have 10 or 8 books? Lu Miking's face changed immediately. Don't think I didn't see what your mother did yesterday. Your chickens haven't opened their cocks yet. Where did the eggs come from? You are a 17-year-old daughter, and you are still stealing food from Xuan Er's mouth. You said, if this word spreads out, what will people think of you? Lin Chuxia stared blankly at Lu Miking. Don't you just want to say that if my reputation is ruined, I don't want to marry a good husband? Hee, that's just right. However, my mother's boiled eggs and your family's, it has nothing to do with the chicken and half a cent. If you dare to go out and make up, Fat Ant will find justice for me and my mother. Fat Ant again. Lu Miking snorted coldly, turned around and went back to her house. There was a bang-bang sound, and then Xuan Er's howling came. In early summer, I couldn't help but stroke my forehead. There is a saying in the countryside that hitting a child on a rainy day means being idle, and this Lu Miking obviously has a habit of fighting against it. Seeing that it was nearly 9 o'clock, in early summer, he put on his shoes on the kong, and turned over the cow dung that Lin Baohe had been hanging by the wall. There is not enough firewood to burn at home, so in order to have a heated kong, Lin Baohe goes to pick up fresh cow dung every morning and come back to dry it for supplementation. It smells bad when it's burned, but who makes her afraid of the cold? After turning over the cow dung, in early summer, the daily routine of cutting sesame cakes began. Hemp pancakes are nutritious and cheap, and it is indispensable to anyone who raises poultry and livestock at home. It's just that the sesame cakes are pressed firmly and firmly. They must be cut into thin strips with a knife and soaked in water before they can be eaten by chickens or pigs. For most rural children, cutting this thing is a piece of cake, but for her typical outside, this job is too technical. Zhao Yulan can do one in 10 minutes, she needs 2 hours cakesing. It's really embarrassing to eat free food after taking up other people's body, and she can help, just feed chickens, turn cow dung and cut sesame cakes, so even if she didn't accept this era, she wouldn't. How to accept Zhao Yulan and Lin Baohe. But for peace of mind, I took the initiative to take over these tasks. Fortunately, the original Lin Chuxia didn't know much about work, otherwise, it would be really difficult to pass the test with her arrogance. Xuan sweet potato is delicious, right? Come on, mother, you. Lu Miking carried Xuan to the door of the main room, holding a half-eaten roasted sweet potato in his hand. Lin Chuxia's eyelids twitched, she stood up without a word, and went to look at the bottom of the stove. If not, the roasted sweet potato that Zhao Yulan buried underneath was gone. The little fist clenched and unclenched, making trouble for a roasted sweet potato and Lu Miking. She couldn't do it with her 21st century thinking, but she was so angry that her parents were reluctant to eat food for her. Lu Miking, how can you be so blatant to grab it? Lu Miking turned around and lifted her eyelids at her, curled the corner of her mouth, and turned her head back. Xuan isn't it delicious? Come on, mother, I'll give you another bite. After feeding Xuan Lu Miking deliberately baked and ate it sweetly. In early summer, you don't need to look at it to know what Lu Miking's expression is now. Forget it, she still couldn't do it for a sweet potato hemorrhage. So comforting herself, Lin Chuxia turned around and walked out. Seeing that she was about to step out of the threshold, Lu Miking stretched her legs forward abruptly. Ha ha ha. Gluck cluck. Just at this moment, a sturdy girl who entered the courtyard saw Lu Miking and Xuan who were laughing so hard that she picked up the broom on the wall and rushed over. You bullied Chu Xia again. Unexpectedly, Chen Yaojin would suddenly come out. Lu Miking wanted to get up and hide, and it was too late to see the broom head that was pressed down. The girl hurriedly put her hand away, threw down the broom and went to tear Lu Miking's hair. You poisonous woman, Xuan is not your son? Why are you so cruel to let him block you? Holding the child and sitting on the bench again, Lu Miking was no match for the girl at all. There was a pain in the scalp, which made her gasp, let go, Lu Miking, let go now. What's the matter, what's wrong with this? The woman in blue yesterday, the auntie in Chuxia came in from the door just in time, which made Lin Chuxia, who had just gotten up, wondered why she always appeared like that timely. It felt like I was always staring at the door. Auntie, are you back so early today? Chu Xia quietly stood in front of Auntie Zhang Sanqiao, blocking her way. New book upload, please recommend, please collect. First marriage then love, Mr. Mayor please be kind. Author, Zhao Nuan. Chapter 4. Zhang Sanqiao had no intention of gossiping with Chu Xia at all. She pulled her away without looking at her, and ran over to Lu Miking who was still tearing Lu Miking's hair. Chu Xia, who stood firm, pouted quietly and took 2 steps back. Lu Miking, whose hair was being pulled, happened to watch Chu Xia's little actions for fear of being implicated, and immediately felt that her heart, liver, and lungs were aching. I really don't know what medicine Lu Miking took wrong. Why did she love to be the cold and impersonal dead girl in Chuxia so much? But no matter how angry she is now, she can't do anything about Chu Xia. Her hair is being pulled by Lu Miking, and she is still holding Xuan in her arms, so she can only wait for her mother-in-law Zhang Sanqiao to save her. It's a pity that when Zhang Sanqiao ran in front of her, he just grabbed Xuan and didn't mean to rescue her at all. Without Xuan's fetters, Lu Miking was much more flexible, but when her hand was about to reach Lu Miking, she held it back. Miking, let go of my sister-in-law and say something nice. Miking, you must have misunderstood my sister-in-law, Meiying. Lu Miking clenched her hands and begged for mercy. Luo Meiying finally let go of her hair, but her face was still it was angrily, do you try calling Meiying again? The corners of Chu Xia's mouth twitched indiscernibly, and then, seemingly leisurely, he turned his gaze to the reed chicken that was pecking at the corner. Mei, Xiaokaiu, it was my fault. Luo Meiying stomped her feet angrily, it's not Xiaokaiu, it's Xiaoxian, Luo Xiaoxian. Xiaoxian, I'm sorry. Xiaoxian, calm down, your sister-in-law doesn't speak very well, don't get to know her in the same way, thank you auntie, if it weren't for you, our little Xuan'er would have suffered from old sin now. Zheng Sanqiao changed his mouth very quickly. After finishing speaking, he glared at Lu Miking, anyway, she is also a mother, how can you let a baby like Xuan'er block the broom for you? Mother, I was in a hurry at the time. Lu Miking said, looking at Xuan'er, who was being held by Zheng Sanqiao, sure, come, mother. Let's step aside. Zheng Sanqiao twisted, staggered away from Lu Miking's outstretched hand, and looked at Luo Xiaoxian, Xiaoxian, come and sit in my aunt's house for a while, there is a fried egg in front of my aunt, but it's crispy. Now, let me give you a taste. No, I won't grab Xuan'er's snacks. Luo Xiaoxian glanced at Lin Chuxia, who was still staring at Lu Hua chicken, and coughed lightly, Chuxia, what happened just now? Lin Chuxia's children's shoes, who couldn't continue to pretend to be irrelevant, had to turn around and smiled lightly, as if telling other people's affairs, and reported everything that happened before to Luo Xiaoxian without any personal inclination. You gluttonous mother-in-law, Zheng Sanqiao slapped Lu Miking on the head with a slap, it's not like you didn't know that Chu Xia's health is not good, how can you eat if you grab her food? Auntie, what are you talking about? Lin Chuxia immediately pulled her face down, what do you mean by stealing my food? Don't think that she doesn't know, Zheng Sanqiao just deliberately picked on the words in front of Luo Xiaoxian, not to reprimand Lu Miking, but she was unwilling to reprimand. Look at auntie, I said the wrong thing when I was in a hurry. It was to steal Chuxia's meal. Zheng Sanqiao put on a pleasing smile, Chuxia, there are still a few sweet potatoes in my uncle's family, so I'll take it for you, let your mother cook it for you at night. After speaking, she stared straight at Luo Xiaoxian's face. Take it. Luo Xiaoxian waved his hand, Chu Xia was shocked by this shock, and her body must have gotten worse, but she has to make up for it. Also, my mother asked me to tell me that in the future, our family will give Chuxia an egg every 2 days to make up for it. You guys don't want to rob her. Don't rob. Don't rob. Lu Miking and Zheng Sanqiao said almost in unison. As for the sweet potatoes sent by Zheng Sanqiao, Chu Xia naturally would not refuse them, but he would never put the sweet potatoes in a place where the two women could see and search. After getting along for so long, she knew all too well what their temperament was. You unconscionable, I stand up for you, so you hide yourself and leave me alone? I won't help you in the future. After entering Chuxia's house and closing the door, Luo Xiaoxian stabbed her in the waist angrily. The subsettler, of course, the voice is extremely low. If I come up to help you, will I still have a way to live in the future? Chu Xia said slowly, and added, the key is that I know that they won't dare to touch you at all. Of course, the aunt's family is not afraid of Luo Xiaoxian, but her father Luo Gangshun. Luo Gangshun was the secretary of the village, and he held the power of life and death for the 4 captains in the village, and Lin Beijiang, the uncle of the early summer, happened to be one of those 4 captains. Chuxia, why do I think you are so much more attentive than before? Luo Xiaoxian looked at Chuxia up and down, I feel that I don't know you more and more. Before, you told me everything, but now, you like to bury everything in your heart, and sometimes I feel that when I see the sky rushing to find you, I'm just being cheap. People always grow up, you don't want me to be so stupid all the time, right? After a pause, Chu Xia sighed, You know the situation in our family, it's not that I don't want to live like you. I'm happy and wanton, but if I really want to be happy, my father and my mother probably won't be able to get through it. The eldest uncle's family, all day long, they want to drive our family out. How can I just let them grab the wrong place? Okay, okay. Josei waved his hand and changed the subject. Shuxia, are you still changing your name? I've changed it for so long, why haven't you changed it? Otherwise, I'll take my father's official seal. Go to the police station with you. Josei's original name was Luo. She and Chuxia were best friends who grew up with their bare bottoms. One day half a year ago, Luo peeked at the novel and felt that her name was rubbish, so she forced Chuxia to change her name together. It took the two of them nearly 3 days to finally figure out the names of Luo and Lindsay, and then they went home separately to discuss. Unsurprisingly, the parents of the two families did not agree. Luo was more capable than Lin Chuxia, so when Lin Chuxia was still at home with her parents, Luo had already stolen her father's official seal and ran to the police station to go to her own. Changed the name. After stealing the official seal, she went to look for Chuxia, but as soon as she arrived at the door of Chuxia's house, she heard her mother's fat aunt's voice, "How dare she go in," and immediately fled with the official seal. When Chuxia knew that Luo didn't wait for her to change her name together as agreed, she was immediately angry. Luo was also a violent temper, and the words disagreed, and the two eventually broke up. First marriage then love. Mr. Mayor, please be kind. Author, Zhao Nuan. Chapter 5. Then something happened to run away from home in the early summer rain. Since then, Chuxia has been a lot colder to Luo, and no longer mentions the matter of changing her name. Or because of guilt, in the past 6 months, no matter how indifferent Chuxia was to Luo, she would protect Chuxia, but Chuxia did not mention the name change, but she would mention it every once in a while. There's no need to change it, Chuxia sounds good. Lin Chuxia felt that the name was given by Chuxia's parents, so she couldn't take their daughter's body, and then changed the name they gave her. And the key point, she was originally called Lin Chuxia, and she couldn't lose the only thing she was familiar with. The two chatted a few more times. Luo, who didn't get a warm response from Chuxia, felt a little boring, so she got up to leave, and made an appointment with Chuxia. If the aunt's family dares to bully her again, they will call her immediately and she will help her. Exhale. Watching Luo's figure drifting away, Chuxia sighed slightly. In the past 6 months, if the other party hadn't come to support her from time to time, her family's life would have been more difficult, or she really should have changed. Change your attitude towards her? Xia, Xuani'er is crying because of hunger, do you have anything to eat? As expected in the early summer, Luo just left, and the auntie came to look for the early summer. Auntie, what can I eat here? Chuxia looked at Zheng Sanqiao with a smile, and directly exposed her. Does auntie feel bad for the sweet potato she gave me and want to go back? No. He. Zheng Sanqiao laughed a few times, then changed the conversation. In early summer, the family lives under one roof, so it's always a little affectionate, and you can tell the difference between inside and outside, don't you think? Chuxia echoed with a smile, what the uncle said, but there is one thing I don't quite understand. The uncle is the captain, my parents work under him, and the uncle always distributes the dirty work to my parents. When you record work points, not only do you remember more, but you also remember less, so what do you say? This child, it's easy for you to be your uncle's captain? If he dares to be a little bit biased towards your parents, someone will immediately sue you. Chuxia, do you think it's none of your business for your uncle to be slapped down? Silly child, this is about whether you can find a good husband's family in the future. Speaking of this, Zheng Sanqiao glanced left and right, leaned in front of Chuxia, and lowered his voice, "Actually, your uncle is secretly helping your parents a lot. Your parents didn't tell you, because you were afraid that your mouth was not strict. Let Luo know. Alas, who made your father and mother to be honest people? Forget it, let the ant do it. One day, you will understand whether the ant is for your own good. Let's put it this way, Luo is as old as you, but she doesn't look as good as you." When the little sisters didn't talk about kissing, it was good to mix oil with honey. When it came time to talk about kissing, who led who? Seeing Zheng Sanqiao stop and stare at her earnestly, Lin Chuxia felt amused and dared to be affectionate. In the eyes of the other party, she was a fool. Thinking like this, the expression on Lin Chuxia's face was light. Don't everyone in the village say that mating is better than me? How can it be that I am better looking than mating when it comes to auntie? Hey, you stupid child. Zheng Sanqiao's voice softened again. If this is really a child from a rich family, don't point to work, you are designated to look like you are very rare. People say that, it's pantothenic acid, do you understand? Lin Chuxia nodded, got it, auntie finished, right? I'm going to cut the sesame cake. Zheng Sanqiao felt that a sigh of anger was suffocating in her heart and couldn't go down. She dared to be affectionate. She talked for a long time here, and said it in vain? You kid. Zheng Sanqiao held back her anger and grabbed Lin Chuxia. Auntie said this just to let you know, in the future, don't tell Luo Mating everything about our family, in case her father grabs the handle. If you slapped your uncle's official, then it will be difficult for you to marry a good family in the future. Chu Xia nodded, yes. Zheng Sanqiao opened her mouth sullenly, and didn't make a sound for a long time. Seeing that Lin Chuxia was about to go out, she hurriedly grabbed her. Xia, do you still have a grudge against auntie? Huh? Lin Chuxia stared at her suspiciously. It's the last time you and Luo Mating changed their names. What the auntie told you was the truth. I would have thought that your child would be so serious. The corners of Lin Chuxia's lips evoked a hint of coldness. It turned out that Lin Chuxia and Luo Mating quarreled that day, and Zheng Sanqiao was involved. In other words, she came to this space and became this Lin Chuxia, and it was Zheng Sanqiao who helped a lot. XX, this damn Zheng Sanqiao, made her come to this dilapidated age when rabbits are unwilling to poop. Lin Chuxia didn't want to say a word to Zheng Sanqiao now, and immediately pushed her out with a drooping face. Where's the sweet potato? Zheng Sanqiao no longer pretended to be, and after a long time of pulling quack, the dead girl didn't enter the oil and salt, and she didn't achieve any goal, so it's the most affordable. Lin Chuxia glared at her, you're such a big man, when you say what you say is a fart. Is there any reason to go back if you give something out? Get out. XX, don't blame her for being rude, she's been through it for half a year, and her eyes are about to come out. After a long time, everything was caused by this dead woman. If it wasn't for killing her life, she really wanted to strangle this dead man. Woman. It's against your gods. It's really against your gods. Zheng Sanqiao flushed with anger, and raised a slap to slap Chu Xia's face. Just grab something and stop it? What? Seeing the blood dripping from Zheng Sanqiao's hand, Chu Xia was also dumbfounded. She didn't do it on purpose, really didn't do it on purpose. How could she know that she just took the scissors, and she was really in a hurry? Zheng Sanqiao's calloused hand slapped her face. Do you still need to think about the consequences? Lu Miking, who was watching the children in the east room, and Lu Miking, who had been waiting for her mother-in-law to bring the sweet potatoes back, heard the miserable cry and ran over immediately. Immediately afterwards, an earth-shattering howl came out, murdered, murdered, early summer, you dead girl. After speaking, he ran into the yard and shouted, come on, help, kill, come. Man, murdered. Lu Miking was beaten by Luo Mating, and her anger was still in her stomach. Now, it happened to be all in Chuxia's head. She was eager to make things worse and ruin Chuxia's reputation. There are only 3 people in the family. How should I say, it's not a matter of her and her mother-in-law talking. New book upload, please recommend, please collect. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. First marriage then love, Mr. Mayor please be kind. Author, Zhao Nuan. Chapter 6. Chu Xia could roughly guess what Lu Miking was thinking, and her brain was also running very fast. With a casual glance in her eyes, she found that although Zheng Sanqiao was screaming oh, yo in pain, her eyes were full of pride. For a moment, she realized that she had been fooled. It was true that Zheng Sanqiao wanted to beat her, but it was false that she inadvertently hurt Zheng Sanqiao. Obviously, it was Zheng Sanqiao's intention to interfere with the scissors. The son was kicked out of this house. So bullying. A shadow flashed in Lin Chuxia's eyes. Ji hugged Zheng Sanqiao's arm softly, and the cry was a miserable, "Auntie, woo, if you beat me, but why are you punching in the face? I'm not in a hurry, I just grabbed something to block my face, woo, I knew that the ant had used such a lot of strength, woo, I won't block anything, woo Zheng Sanqiao looked at Lin Chuxia, who was crying like her dead mother, with disbelief on her face. This girl had hard tears since she was a child, and it was almost as difficult for her to cry as a cock laying eggs. It was precisely because she knew this, she would temporarily change her mind and hand to meet her. What happened? Miking, what happened? At this time, there were chaotic footsteps and noisy inquiries outside the yard. Second uncle, third aunt, fourth grandfather, Chu Xia was crazy just now, holding scissors and trying to stab my mother-in-law to death. What's going on? What's going on? When Lu Miking was explaining loudly to the neighbors who heard her howling and ran over, a chubby figure hurriedly entered the yard. Before Lu Miking could answer, the fat figure had already entered the room. Fatty aunt, woo. Lin Chuxia, who was screaming when she saw the woman, collapsed softly. Xia, hold on, oh, what a sin. Fatty my aunt hugged Chu Xia, frowned and looked at Zheng Sanqiao. Sanqiao, isn't it just a few sweet potatoes? As for my mating, who has left the front foot, you will come to snatch it with the back foot? If you really lack those few sweet potatoes, just take care of your daughter-in-law and tell her not to grab the food in early summer and Yulan and Baohe go to work hungry. Why? Isn't it just to make up for the early summer? You don't understand why this child protects the food in early summer? Can a daughter-in-law feel sorry for her parents? Aunt Fatty's questioning made the people watching the lively outside immediately get a clear picture of the whole story. Although everyone doesn't like the squeamish early summer, but thinking about her small physique, they also feel that Zheng Sanqiao's mother-in-law and daughter-in-law both are doing too much. Seeing that the situation was about to reverse, Lu Miking became anxious and ran into the house in 3 or 2 steps. Aunt Fat. Shut up, Zheng Sanqiao shouted, isn't it all up to you? Xuani'er is hungry, you don't cook sweet potatoes for him yourself, but you want to rob Baohe and Yulan for Chuxia. Are you such a sister-in-law? After speaking, his voice softened, he's fat, but I have to explain this to you, I came to Chuxia to grab sweet potatoes. I also thought it was not easy for Baohe and the others, so they gave all the sweet potatoes at home to Chu Xia, but when Chuan cried, I remembered that I didn't keep it for him, so I thought about taking them back. This girl in Chu Xia really felt sorry for her parents, so she was reluctant to give it to me. Looking at her small appearance of protecting food, I was really hurt, so I wanted to reach out and touch her. If she thought about it, she misunderstood. She grabbed the scissors and measured it at me. I was afraid that she would hurt herself and quickly reach out and grab it. When Mei Qing came in, just watching Chu Xia hold a pair of scissors to measure me, she didn't dare to go forward with the child in her arms, so she ran out and shouted. Alas, you said this was a mess. The fat ant sighed and persuaded Chu Xia softly, Xia, let's stop crying, your uncle's family is not well off, didn't your sister-in-law take you a sweet potato? Then let her pay you back and give them the rest. Today's matter is over like this, be obedient, go and take out the sweet potatoes. Aunt Fatty actually believed Zheng Sanqiao's flawed remarks. Chu Xia stared at Aunt Fatty with a stunned expression on her face, with a look of disbelief. Afterwards, the whispers from outside made her sure that everyone believed it. This, Lin Chuxia really felt that her brain was short-circuited. If people outside believed she could barely accept it, how could Aunt Fatty believe it? Be obedient, Xia, Aunt Fatty will ask my king to bring you some later. Apparently, Aunt Fatty thought Chu Xia was unwilling to take out the sweet potatoes and was stunned, and immediately coaxed softly and made a promise. No, Chu Xia stroked her forehead and stared at Aunt Fatty pitifully. Aunt Fatty, do you really believe what she said? How could you believe what she said? She was just making excuses. In early summer, she was a post-85 generation. Although her original family was not wealthy, it was considered a moderately prosperous family. Her parents were both civil servants, and she was the only daughter in the family. Her parents did not spoil her, but they never did. It will make her suffer too much grievance. Therefore, even if it has been more than half a year since she came to this era, and even if she has adapted for so long, she still cannot accept others' false accusations against her. Her tears just now were genuine, just thinking of her original happy life, and looking at the hard days now, she felt sadness coming from her heart. Chuxia, last time you beat me and Chukia to death for a small frozen sweet potato button, let alone a few big sweet potatoes, a half-sized thief burst in with a smile, followed by an identical replica. Lin Chuxia pointed to herself, I beat you two to death, are you kidding? With such a small body, she wants to beat the two brothers who are not much stronger than her to death? Hee, that's too funny, right? No, you forgot. You forgot to transform into Lu Hulin for the sake of eating. Ha ha. There was a roar of laughter outside the yard. Early spring and early autumn, how long has it been? Don't mention it anymore, Aunt Fat glared at the two of them, it's none of your business here, where to play. Fatty Aunt, you are used to her temper. You should just be used to her. If you really marry her back home in the future, I'll see how you behave. The words of the half-eldest child made Chu Xia's brain explode with a bang. Why hasn't she heard of this? Neither her parents nor Mi Young mentioned it to her. This one after another, let her live? But what the hell is going on? First marriage then love, Mr. Mayor please be kind. Author, Zhao Nuan. Chapter 7. Chuxia. Zhao Yulan staggered into the house, supported Chuxia, who was still in a daze, and looked up and down, where is the injury? Show my mother, where is the injury? Het. Zheng Sanqiao laughed angrily, stretched out his bloody hand and shook it in front of Zhao Yulan, his second aunt is injured here. Ah, Zhao Yulan stared blankly at Zheng Sanqiao's blood-stained slap, this is the injury from Chu Xia. No. Can't it? His fat aunt. Zheng Sanqiao moved her palms to move her palms in front of the fat aunt, look, I'm so tied up, she doesn't even ask Zhao Yulan, she still thinks about Li account. I think the second family is honest, but now, you can see that honest people like to do such dishonest things. No matter how many doubts there are in her heart, she can't ask them out in front of outsiders. Lin Chuxia patted Zhao Yulan's hand lightly, Mom, I'm fine. Next, she told the story in detail again. There is no deviation from what she said just now. When her voice fell, Aunt Fatty immediately said to the muddy, Yulan, that's what happened, you can't blame the child, and you can't blame Sen Kiao, it's up to me to see it, that's all. Bar. The implication is that Zhao Yulan should not care that Zheng Sen Kiao almost hit Lin Chuxia, and at the same time, Zheng Sen Kiao should not care that Lin Chuxia hurt her. However, the weather vane just now was obviously biased towards her side, so how could Zheng Sen Kiao just forget about it? She immediately stretched out her hand that started to bleed again. She fat aunt, look at my hand, how many days can it take? Earning work points? The young and the old in this family are all waiting to eat with their mouths open. Are you trying to bleed on purpose? Chu Xia pouted and looked at Zheng San Kiao's palm, her voice calm, Auntie, how much hatred do you have with me? In order to frame me, you can stick your hands on the scissors, you can also pick up the blood from the wound that is no longer bleeding, a person who can be ruthless to himself, to others, forget it, I won't say it. I can't get over it, it's really impossible to live under one roof. Zheng San Kiao burst into a loud roar, I've been bullied by a brat all day, who still looks down on me. It's all right in front of you, isn't I making up things? Look at what they have done. It's impossible to pass this day. Auntie, you don't have to pretend to be pitiful. Snapped. There was a red palm print on Chu Xia's pale face immediately. The words she wanted to say were stuck in her throat and could not come out. She just stared at Zhao Yulan with disbelief. Zhao Yulan avoided her gaze and looked at Zheng San Kiao, sister-in-law, I beat the child, you calm down, this is all my fault and Baohe's fault, we didn't teach our children well, sister-in-law, we are a family, should we live under one roof in the future, or we have to live under one roof? Okay, let's live under one roof first. Zheng San Kiao stood up and sighed at Chu Xia, who was still in a daze. Chu Xia, after being beaten by your mother, do you really care about the auntie? You kid, forget it, you'll understand when you're 2 years older. Yulan, persuade Chu Xia well. And Fatty sighed and got up, patted Zhao Yulan, rubbed Chu Xia's head again, and went out the door. A dark place stood in the small yard, and the fat ant snorted coldly, it seems that you are not tired, I will chat with Luo Gangshun when I go back. As soon as the words were said, everyone went out with a ha-ha. They liked to see jokes and fun, but, compared to more work, it's still fun to watch. Aunt Fatty glanced back at the window of Chu Xia's house. She could faintly hear Zhao Yulan sobbing. She couldn't help sighing again and went home. Mother, are you all right? In early summer, as soon as she entered the door, Luo Xiaoxian greeted her. Let her mother slap her. The fat ant shook her head, the temper of early summer, sigh. Following that, he looked at his daughter up and down, it's rare that you are so obedient and didn't join in the fun, saying, are you holding back some bad intentions? Let me tell you, if you help too much in some things, it will hurt Chu Xia, don't be so mean. Send it to the door to grab the handle for others. Am I that kind of person? Luo Xiaoxian rolled her eyes at her mother, I'm not stupid. When our mother and I go together, people will only say that we are bullying others, sigh, if it hadn't already fought against Lu Miking, this it's nothing to do with the mother. The fat ant felt that her head was too big, Maying, can you be like a girl? You say that with your temperament, who would dare to marry you? Stop. 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 Luo Xiaoxian took a step back and made a solemn posture, my name is Luo Xiaoxian, mother, if you call me wrong again, I will never get married in my life. I'll keep my word. Okay, Ziokshan. The fat ant frowned and looked helpless. You girl, do you really think it's good to be poor? It's not good to be poor, this person, it's better to be rich. If you look at Chuxia's house, you'll know. Logo Ziokshan jumped with hatred. Mother, where are you going? It's Ziokshan, not Ziokshan. I said that you are all one by one, and you always called me wrong, either Ziokai or Ziokshan. Is it that difficult? Maying is so nice. The fat ant murmured, seeing her daughter's face turning negative. She quickly put a smile on her face. Okay, Ziokshan, I'll talk to your father and your brother later. We can't do any more. Wrong call. It's about the same, Logo Ziokshan, with big eyes. Mother, you are good to Chusia. Is it because I am good with her, or because you like her? Why do I always feel that my mother is good to her? Something is wrong. A trace of unnaturalness flashed on Aunt Fatty's face, and then she returned to normal. What's wrong? It's clearly because you are a dead girl who doesn't let people, and I can't see that I am as good to others as I am to you. Your brother is fighting for favor. You go around the whole village, whose daughter is as nourishing as you. It's starting to be wordy again. Logo Ziokshan quickly smeared oil on the soles of her feet. I'll go see Chuxia. Come back, the fat ant grabbed her daughter. Why are you so ignorant? Chuxia just asked her mother to slap her, and now, your second ant has designated her to coax her. What kind of temperament is Chuxia? It's not like you don't know. If you really can't get rid of this knot, and then run away from home, what should you do? Logo Ziokshan, who was struggling to go out, quickly stopped her footsteps, her face showing a look of fear, and then, a trace of sadness flashed in her eyes. That time, Chuxia and her were no longer as close as they used to be. If time could go back, she would never change her name first. At this time, the atmosphere of Chuxia's house will not be so good. First marriage then love. Mr. Mayor, please be kind. Author, Zhao Nuan. Chapter 8. After Zheng Sanqiao and Fatty Ant left, Zhao Yulan helped Chuxia to get up in distress, but Chuxia pushed her to a stagger, and the indifferent Zhao Yulan's heart ached with Chuxia's indifferent gaze. When she slapped her out, she knew that her daughter would hate her, and the relationship she finally got closer or alienated again, but she had no choice. If she didn't do that, Zheng Sanqiao would not give up, for the sake of her daughter's reputation. She had to let herself down. Chuxia, don't be angry with your mother. Zhao Yulan once again reached out her hand to support her daughter and pulled her up. Let go of me. Chuxia's tone was as cold as ice. Lin Chuxia really couldn't accept that slap. It's obviously not her fault, so why beat her? You can fight, but you can't fight anywhere, so why do you want to slap in the face? If it was my former parents, I would never have done this. Chuxia struggled to get up with her hands on the ground, lying on the con with her back to Zhao Yulan, her shoulders shrugged. Zhao Yulan's heart hurt even more. Chuxia. Zhao Yulan sat behind Chuxia and stroked her lightly. Mother knows you're angry and you'll hate her, but she can't do anything about it, otherwise, how will you marry in the future? Marry. Lin Chuxia sat up suddenly, her eyes full of anger. You know marriage, do women have to endure being ridiculed on their necks in order to marry a good husband? They always bully people like this. You and your father are used to it. Endure it and endure it, let it go, but do they appreciate it? Besides bullying us more and more, what good is there? You always say that I am the only girl in our family, and we have to let them go. I don't understand, what's wrong with that? Don't point to them for old age, have a hair loss. Speaking of the latter, Lin Chuxia's internet words all popped up, her little face turned pale with anger, and her faint palm prints became clearer on it. At this moment, Lin Baohe pushed open the door and came in. He stared at his daughter and looked at it. A hint of distress flashed in his eyes. Xia, Don't blame your mother, she is for your own good. This sentence stabbed the hornet's nest even more. Slap me in the face for my own good? Humph. It's for my own good. I'm so embarrassed when it spreads out, just right, don't everyone think I'm ugly? Now I can finally be ugly. The more Lin Chuxia spoke, the more angry she became, and her words became incoherent. Ugh. Zhao Yulan, who had been sobbing while suppressing her voice, knelt down on the pit and slapped her face. Xia, mother is wrong, mother shouldn't hit you, it's your father and mother who are incompetent, I will always make you feel wronged, you will not be able to eat and wear, and you will be beaten by your mother, who is not a human being. Mother, Chu Xia hugged her in shock, her throat seemed to be strangled, and she couldn't say a word again. This scene was so irritating to her, she suddenly realized that how could her parents behave the same in a different age? She is so impersonal. How can a loved one be forced into this role? She understood why Zhao Yulan did this. Originally, Chu Xia was not close to her parents, but she became even less close after she came. She finally became closer during this time. Seeing that she was about to slap her back to the original point, Zhao Yulan was really anxious and scared. Alas, Lin Baohe sighed heavily, squatting on the ground with his head in his arms, tearing his hair with big hands, his blue veins exposed. Mother, I'm sorry, Dad, I'm sorry, I was wrong. Chu Xia, who was calmer, solemnly apologized to his parents, I won't do this again in the future, I promise. Xia. Chu Xia's mother hugged her daughter's crying nose and burst into tears, it's your mother's fault, and if your mother still beats you if you don't have the ability, it's all your mother's fault. Repeatedly, just a few times. Sentence. Father, get up. Chu Xia let go of Zhao Yulan, pulled up Lin Baohe from the Kong, paused for a moment, and slammed open the door. Where did you put it? Why isn't there any more? Yeah, I also remember being in this room. Why is there no more? Zheng Sanqiao and Lu Miking, who were standing there with their heads stretched out, coughed awkwardly and walked around the main room pretending to be looking for something. At the entrance of the east room, the uncle Lin Beijiang and the cousin Lin Chudong, who was holding Xuan Er, were also there. With an embarrassed look on his face, Lin Beijiang immediately put on an embarrassed smile. Baohe, Yulan, it's not right for Sanqiao and Miking today, don't blame the child, he. Lin Baohe nodded, grunted in his throat and made a sound of thinking about closing the door. Lin Chuxia blocked it. Dad, don't worry, I have something to say. Chuxia. Zhao Yulan had already got off the Kong, and hurriedly called out to her daughter, her red and swollen eyes full of begging, Chuxia, mother will cook you something delicious tonight. Mother, I have a few. Chu Xia took Zhao Yulan's arm and shook it, and then looked at the uncle's family again. Uncle, brother, sister-in-law, I know, you have always wanted to drive our family out of this house. And the reason you do this is because you think that I will get married one day, and it is impossible for my parents to leave roots to the Lin family, so they owe it to the Lin family. This is what you think, right? Lin Beijiang quickly waved his hands to deny. No, Xia, you think too much. Zheng Sanqiao stared at Chu Xia indifferently, and Lu Miking pouted. The expressions of the two indirectly confirmed their thoughts. Only Lin Chudong looked helpless, opened his mouth, but didn't say anything in the end. After looking around, a cold smile appeared on Lin Chuxia's lips. Don't deny it, that's what you all think, but you are all wrong. My father and my mother will definitely have grandchildren. Lu Miking sprayed immediately, the corners of his eyes and the brows were narrow, and Lin Baohe and Zhao Yulan's faces were flushed. Xia, let's go back to the house. I haven't finished speaking yet. Chu Xia knew that everyone had misunderstood, and quickly explained, Father, Mother, you always say that the reason for holding back is so that I can find a good in-laws family, and what kind of good in-laws family I am also I don't know, but the family that wants me to marry must promise me that the first child's surname is Lin, and it's Lin from the Lin Baohi family. Therefore, you will definitely have grandchildren or granddaughters. Lu Miking sprayed again. Zheng Sen Kiao also sprayed. Haha. Lin Baojiang laughed bitterly. Xia, don't talk nonsense. Zhao Yulan hurriedly dragged Chu Xia into the house. I'm not talking nonsense. Chu Xia slammed the door frame to prevent him from entering. I haven't finished talking yet. Second aunt, just let her finish. Lu Miking looked at the show. Chu Xia is so filial, you can't stop it, ha ha ha. New book upload, please recommend, please collect. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. First marriage then love, Mr. Mayor please be kind. Author, Zhao Nuan. Chapter 9. I'm sorry for your second uncle and you want to abuse us like this. Zhao Yulan stared at Lu Miking who was laughing with red eyes. You can rest assured that even if you marry in early summer, my second uncle and I will be left alone. It won't touch you at all. Go into the house. Lin Chudong pushed Lu Miking and smiled at Zhao Yulan. Second aunt, Miking has such a temperament, but there's nothing bad about it, don't be angry. Don't pretend to be a good person here. Lu Miking did not accept Lin Chudong's affection, twisted her body, avoided his hand, and showed a sarcastic smile at Chuxia. You just want to recruit your son-in-law, but I want to know, how do you live with your son-in-law? Is it possible that the son-in-law will also squeeze with his husband and mother-in-law on the same kong? These words were vicious, and Zhao Yulan was trembling with anger. Lu Miking, try saying one more word, and see if I don't tear your mouth. Lin Baohi, who had been silent all the time, heard the words. The body trembled violently, and immediately rushed to Lu Miking, without waiting for the other party to react. Crack. Lu Miking's yellowish face was clearly marked with 5 whitish fingerprints and then slowly flushed. She stared at Lin Baohi in disbelief, and the scene fell into a dead silence. Lin Baohi's character is that kind of super good-natured type, not to mention beating people. He usually doesn't even scold him even if others bully him. Therefore, his sudden action has caused all the people to come back to their senses, including Zhao Yulan and Lin Chuxia. Ow, the recovered Lu Miking ran towards Lin Baohi, scratching his face. Lin Baohi, who had slapped Lu Miking like a tiger going down the mountain just now, was as honest as a sheep, motionless. Let Lu Miking spill. Things happened too fast, and when everyone came to their senses and pulled Lu Miking away, there were already bloodstains on Lin Baohi's face. Father. Lin Chuxia's nose was sore. Since she came to this era, her understanding of Lin Baohi was that she would always be silent, be patient forever. She could feel his love for her daughter, however, she never imagined that he would love her daughter to such an extent. Lin Baohi grinned at his daughter. Xia, don't be mad at your mother. The implication is that your mother beat you because of Lu Miking. I have already returned the slap to Lu Miking, then you should not be angry with your mother. Pissed. Father, I'm not angry with my mother anymore. I'm really not angry with my mother anymore. No matter what age Lin Chuxia was, she was not someone who liked to cry. She tried her best to hold back her tears and turned her eyes to Lu Miking again, as if the washed eyes were clear without any impurities. Lu Miking was a little uncomfortable when she saw it, snorted and looked away. Since Grandpa and Grandma gave us this room, it belongs to us, and no one wants to take it away. This is what I didn't finish talking about. After speaking, Lin Chuxia pulled Lin Bao from left to right. He and Zhao Yulan, father, mother, go back to the house. The couple let their daughter lead them into the house. As for the big family outside, after the trouble just now, they no longer had the habit of listening to the cracks in the door. Boom, the door to the east also closed. The awakened Zhao Yulan grabbed her daughter's arm and said anxiously, "Xia, how can you say something like that? If you spread it out, people will laugh at you to death. How can you be so reckless, child?" Chu Xia smiled unhurriedly, "Mother, find a clean cloth and wipe your father's face. Father, you are true, if you don't fight back, do you hide from the head office?" He. Lin Baohe smiled slyly, "It's alright, Dad doesn't hurt, just her temperament. If she doesn't let her get it, when Mom and Dad are not at home, she appoints to bully you, Dad's face will be drenched. Don't worry, Xia's face can't be hurt, and she has to find her in-laws." "Father." Lin Chuxia opened and closed her mouth, not knowing what to say. In the impression, this was the longest sentence Lin Baohe had ever spoken to her. She had always thought that Lin Baohe would only dance with one word and one sentence. "Your father used to talk a lot." Zhao Yulan found a clean cloth, dipped it in water, and helped Lin Baohe to wipe the blood on his face, while saying, "I just don't want to talk after being wronged." "Who wronged Dad?" Chu Xia looked at Lin Baohe curiously. Lin Baohe's face was obviously unnatural. "No one, no one." "Baohe, don't hide it, tell your child, it's better to talk about this today." Alas, Zhao Yulan sighed heavily. At that time, Shuchun also shouted out. One by one. Lin Baohe covered his head and sighed, "De Xiao, I'll let them do everything, even a stone, it can be covered with heat, these one by one, why is it, it's not like a family son." "Father, Mother, are Chuchun's words true?" Shuxia looked at them seriously, "Why have I never heard of you? What's going on?" Zhao Yulan let out a long breath and said, "Xia, when you were young, you were more affectionate to Aunt Fatty than to your father and mother, and she was also really kind to you. Your mother told you about things, but you can't. Your fat aunt is indifferent. If you promise Mother, Mother will tell you." "I promise." Hearing Zhao Yulan say this, Lin Chuxia suddenly realized that she had always felt that the fat aunt's family was outrageous for her family, and sure enough, there was a reason. After Luo Gangshun's eldest son, Luo Hunky, was born, he was very weak due to insufficient milk supply. Luo Gangshun felt sorry for his son. He often used his position in the brigade to steal some millet and go home to breastfeed his daughter-in-law. As a result, he happened to be bumped by Lin Baohe once. In order to resolve the embarrassment between the two, Lin Baohe also grabbed Xiaomi and put it in his pocket. Luo Gangshun was stunned for a moment, and quickly reached out to stop him. Unexpectedly, the village secretary Chen Fenggang rushed in at that time. Seeing the movements of the two, his face immediately turned black. Then, it was to open a general meeting of the villagers to report criticism, close the small black house, write an inspection. After some tossing and turning, the cheerful Lin Baohe's personality made a 180-degree turn. Work. Luo Gangshun, who was regarded as a positive and typical propaganda, couldn't stand the inner condemnation. He wanted to stand up and take responsibility with Lin Baohe, but was stopped by Fat Aunt, who threatened him with his life. Afterwards, Aunt Fat went to Zhao Yulan, who had been engaged to Luo Gangshun, and told her the whole thing, crying and begging her not to tell it, nor to leave Lin Baohe because of this. New book upload, please recommend, please collect. First marriage then love, Mr. Mayor please be kind. Author, Zhao Nuan. Chapter 10. Zhao Yulan understood that at that point, if Luo Gang was to be confessed to, at most one more person would suffer, and there would be no other benefit at all. As for leaving Lin Baohe, she didn't even have that idea. Her family and Lin Baohe's grandmother were neighbors, and the two of them were childhood sweethearts. How could she have left him when he was in the most difficult time? In this way, Zhao Yulan and Lin Baohe got married, and Luo Gangshun and his wife had been very helpful to the couple because of their guilt. After Zhao Yulan gave birth to the early summer, the fat aunt gave half of Meiying's small clothes and diapers, and went to help from time to time. Son. Xia, don't think that the little clothes and diapers are nothing. At that time, your father and I were poor. If it weren't for the fat ant, you could only urinate naked in a small quilt and wipe with a rag. This is Zhao Yulan's original words. After learning that Zhao Yulan could not be reborn, Luo Gangshun and Aunt Fatty negotiated with them very solemnly, and let her marry Luo Hunky when Chuxia grew up. Luo Lin Baohe and Zhao Yulan very firmly rejected this proposal. In their opinion, the sin Lin Baohe suffered for Luo Gangshun back then was not worthy of the other party's repayment. Even though she refused, Aunt Fatty never gave up the idea. Once, when she mentioned this to Zhao Yulan again, she happened to be heard by Lin Baohai, who went to Lin Baohe. That's why Chuchun Chukio knew about it, or maybe it's already spread in the village now. The general situation is like this. From the perspective of future generations, Chu Xia will feel that the entanglement between them is meaningless, but in that era, when the food was huge, and the future generations were related to fate, the actions of Luo Gangshun and his wife could be regarded as benevolent and righteous. Father, did you hate Uncle Gangshun back then? After Zhao Yulan finished speaking, Chu Xia immediately looked at the good man Lin Baohe and asked. Lin Baohe shook his head without thinking, I don't hate it. No. Hate? Lin Chuxia's eyes widened instantly, with a look of disbelief. What your father said is true. Zhao Yulan sighed faintly. I was really angry back then, but after thinking about it, what your father said was also true. If you had just stood up with your uncle, your father would have suffered. It won't be less, and it will even bring your uncle Gangshun's future too. Then they won't be able to help us, and our family will suffer more crimes. Listening to what Zhao Yulan said, not only should you not blame the other party, but also thank the other party for their kindness. This is a foolish father and a foolish mother. Chu Xia had read some books from that era and knew that Lin Baohe was caught on the spot, and the explanation was the weakest. People of that era seemed to have a fanatical hobby for fighting, so she could only try to understand that era. Some ideas of people. Or, she was lucky. If she woke up at the time when Lin Baohe and the others were young, then all she could choose would be to find a rope to get rid of herself. Mother, if you have anything else to say, let's talk it through today, okay? Seeing Zhao Yulan's expression of hesitating to speak, Chu Xia simply took off her shoes and sat cross-legged on the kong. Appearance. Zhao Yulan took a long breath and said, Chu Xia, seeing you become more and more sensible, knowing that you feel sorry for your father and mother are really happy, but you child, how can you say that you will find me later without discussing it with us? Mother-in-law, they have to promise that your first child will follow our family name. Glancing at Chu Xia and seeing her veiled face, Zhao Yulan knew that she didn't understand what she meant, so she had to explain it further. If you say that, you must marry Hunky, but you child, you are a child. If you don't deal with him, tell me, if you got this far, marry or not. Why do I have to marry him? Lin Chuxia felt that her brain was not enough. Even if the request she made has been mentioned before, it doesn't mean that she can't choose someone else without Luo Hunky, right? What kind of logic is this? Every time Luo Hunky saw her, she was blushing like a cockfighting neck with a thick neck, and she kept wondering where she had offended him. Dare to be affectionate is that the deity and he have never dealt with, so why let her accept the stupid goods? Chu Xia, the first child with our family name was first proposed by your Aunt Fatty and Uncle Gangshun, and now you say it again, if you don't marry Hunky, your Uncle Gangshun and Aunt Gangshun will be the first to propose. Where do you put your face? Lin Chuxia is staring at her mother in awe. Is it more important to others' face or her happiness? Could it be that the couple were willing to tell her what happened back then, and that was the reason? Let's get married, you know the bottom line. The one who just followed the family is good to Chu Xia, and he won't let the red flag bully the early summer. That's all set. Next time, the next time you go to the family, you should come down, I'll go to Gang Shun's house to see. This is going to ventilate the letter? Chu Xia hurriedly grabbed his sleeve and said, Father, why didn't you ask me to make a decision? This is the biggest event of my life, how can I decide it like this? I'm your own daughter, you can't do it like this. If you weren't father's daughter, would father be able to do this? Lin Bao he stopped and looked at his daughter seriously. Chu Xia, what you said today in front of your uncle's family will be passed on tomorrow. Open. What Lin Bao he means is that if the Fat Ant's family got the news from other channels first, they would feel that the Chuxia family was separated from them. Dad means that I can only marry Luo Hunky. Lin Chuxia pulled Lin Bao he hard to prevent him from going out. Dad, come back and sit down first, let's have a good chat. Zhao Yulan sighed softly, my silly girl, what else is there to talk about? Your sister-in-law went out just now, this matter doesn't need to be tomorrow, it will spread tonight. In fact, that kid in Hunky is not bad, he is tall and good-looking, and he has a simple temperament. If you don't deal with it now, that's because he is young and ignorant. Besides, with your fat aunt and Uncle Gang Shun here, what would he dare to do to you? You have a good relationship with Mei Ying, and you don't have to worry about your sister-in-law's anger. After all, if you really marry into the Luo family, your father and mother will be most at ease. Mother. Chu Xia looked at Zhao Yulan with a black line, didn't you always refuse before, why did you change your mind in a blink of an eye? New book upload, please recommend, please collect.